So welcome. Today is Regulatory Shifts Ahead, Food Safety and Product Development. We decided that we did need a mid-year regulatory check-in due to a lot of the changes that are occurring, and we hope you find this valuable use of your time as well. My name is Denise Webster. I have 28 years in the food manufacturing and retail industry, from food safety, regulatory compliance, as well as product commercialization. I'm also one of SCS's lead trainers for BRC, SQF, and all things FSMA and related topics. For those of you that haven't able to join us prior, just a little brief overview of our key services. We have 40 years in the sustainability industry. We also have, of course, a huge category of food and ag support, from everything from food safety, certification, social accountability, and product claims like organic and non-GMO. Another key area of our service that I felt was relevant for today's call is we have expanded to be your regulatory and technical service specific to specifications, regulatory guidance with labels, state regs like Prop 65, and some of the ongoing state-by-state regulations, and just overall compliance. So if you ever need anything in that area, we are your potential provider. So our topics today are to really look at the food regulations even since they have been initially updated in January. There has been a lot of shifts and there may be some important impacts to your organization that you need to be aware of. We will take a deeper dive into some of those areas just to ensure that you guys are prepared, as there have been an increase in scrutiny and regulatory enforcement on certain topics that have been actually kind of surprising. And so I want to make sure that everyone is looped in as the purpose of this webinar. We'll also look at those impacts when it comes to product development challenges and some tips to ensure that your team is ready to adapt, as well as overall to build consumer trust. And as I mentioned, we will conclude with that Q&A. We'll start off by just asking you guys a poll question. So let me open that up for you. Okay. How confident are you in your company's ability to meet the demands of changing regulations? From very confident, somewhat, not very confident, or not at all. Ultimately, we do want to hear from you guys, just that gut check of where do you think you're at, and then it will be good kind of post the conversation to understand if there were things that perhaps were surprising that you were not aware of in the changing landscape that we're in right now. Give you guys just a few more seconds so everyone has an opportunity to get their answers into the poll. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and share those results. All right, looks like we have a strong, somewhat confident 72%. So hopefully with this webinar, that'll kind of help you guys get better into that very confident. And then I see 21% of you fully prepared and proactive. It'll be great to hear from you guys as well. If you have any questions or insights that you would like to share, please don't just put questions in the chat field. Any kind of comment or feedback or industry best practice, this is a great opportunity for us to not just have me speak, but also to have you guys have a voice as well. And then we have that 7% and 1%. We hope that this does provide you value in terms of being able to keep up in a quick 45 to 50 minute webinar. All right, let's go ahead and close that poll. Thank you guys. All right, so why are we here? Well, not only has there been changes at the industry level, but there's been big changes in the FDA, unfortunately. We do have a new FDA commissioner. We also have a new deputy commissioner for the Office of Human Foods. If you recall, the FDA launched the Human Foods Program as part of that broader agency reorganization that occurred back in October 2024. The FDA then also further oversees now specific regulations related to the food safety and nutrition space. And they have had that shift in the leadership, but overall, there has not been a shift in going away from some of the key initiatives. But I do have some updates as it relates to very specific topics. Another item that just came out on June 2nd is FDA's announcement that they will be using AI technology. This AI tool is named ELSA. It'll help in terms of their press release, to streamline workflows and improve operational efficiency. It'll be used by employees. It'll also ensure to help to address scientific reviewers and investigations work more efficiently by assisting with tasks like reading, writing, even summarizing the information into reports. As part of their release, they said some of the employees have noted that a report might take them 2 to 3 days to write, which is now taking them 6 minutes. Some of those reports can be around our adverse events that occur, as well as expediting label comparisons. Another notable thing that I thought was interesting was within that video, they mentioned high yield inspection targets. So AI kind of identifying where those high risk facilities are and targeting those specifically with perhaps elevated inspections from a frequency standpoint. So this is definitely something that we need to be attuned to, and I would definitely encourage you to watch that video. I mentioned earlier this year about the change with the OII, which is the Office of Inspection Investigation. They have recategorized the recall coordinator offices, and if you haven't had a chance to update your recall plans to make sure that you do have the right office selected. For example, I'm in California now. Southern is split from Northern, which wasn't the case before. But they have made an update to their website. Not only did they make this shift, they have a vision, and mission, and fact sheet now, which really puts more responsibility and accountability that they are an official office, not just a support element. They even have a food product inspectorate or an FPI that is in charge of these areas. So with this more structure and the shifting programs around, this is in an effort to facilitate improved routine food safety inspections at both the state and local agencies as well. So when it comes to FDA inspections, just in May, FDA announced expanding the use of unannounced inspections at foreign manufacturing facilities. Specifically, their quote on this announcement was that for too long, foreign companies have enjoyed a double standard, given advance notice before facility inspections, while American manufacturers are held to a rigorous standard with no advance warning. That ends today. This is a key step for the FDA as part of a broader strategy to get foreign inspections back on track. And that was a direct quote from the new FDA Commissioner, Martin Makary. So what does that mean to us? Well, if you are getting products from foreign manufacturers, I would definitely make sure that we're doing our due diligence in ensuring that they're aware of their FDA obligations and our overall auditing ourselves of those facilities in order to head off any potential issues. This expanded approach also has been noted as an unapologetic effort to make the overall FDA inspection program stronger and smarter and protect the public safety of Americans. So don't forget there is the new FDA data dashboard. but they have actually made some additional updates if you haven't been on it in a while. So there is now a full compliance dashboard. You can filter with trend graphs as well as look for 483 nonconformances off the back end of those inspections. FDA conducts approximately 12,000 domestic inspections, and at this point, 3,000 foreign inspections over more than 90 countries. So it will be interesting to see if those numbers do increase, especially from a foreign manufacturing standpoint. So with the data dashboard, this information was generated. Unfortunately, it does not separate out cosmetics. So food and cosmetics is one category. So far, 470,000 inspections have taken place in 2025. And you can see the breakdown of those specific issues that have occurred. So in summary, the 25.3% is of those sites that has no foreign supplier verification program. So this is surprising considering FSVP has been very aggressively inspected, but there are still companies selling product into the US that have no FSVP compliant plan, at least those that have been inspected. So that means there's probably more out there that have not even started or recognize that they fall under this regulation. And then unfortunately, 3 of the top other trending areas are the things that we should just be getting right. But unfortunately, pest control, sanitary operations, and personal hygiene, specifically to the food industry. And lastly, the 9.4% is around our hazard analysis and not conducting an appropriate preventive control hazard analysis. There is another regulation that I wanted to bring up today, which is the FDA's intentional adulteration rule with those mitigation strategies, or commonly called the IAVA rule. The FDA last year did announce that they would be increasing their inspections. They have a team now that is out there adequately trained to actually conduct these inspections. The FBI has been going to some of these conferences as well because they are supporting the awareness and outreach element of compliance with this rule. Lastly, when I did go through the 483s for nonconformances, I was able to find one citing of a company that did get a violation against IAVA, that they did not have a record of taking the required food defense corrective actions. So they are starting to get out there and inspect. So how can you prepare? This is just a few list of questions that your operation can go through to make sure indeed that you are prepared for an FDA inspection. They might be there for routine inspection. They might be there specifically for food defense or for a particular event. In either case, these are the key things that you want to make sure that you have prepared. A written food defense plan, the identified FDQI, or our food defense qualified individual who has gone through the IAVA training, the vulnerability assessment, the outcome of that having the significant vulnerabilities identified either using the key activity types, the 3 elements, or the hybrid. And if that's all jargon to you, I would encourage you to sign up for training to make sure that you're fully prepared to answer all of these questions. That also includes the reanalysis requirement, which we would be well past due from the implementation date. One that probably made a lot of people happy, which was in March 20th, the FDA did announce its intention to extend the compliance date for the food traceability rule by 30 months. Although I have to note that this does not amend the requirements of the rule. It simply provides additional time necessary to ensure complete coordination across the supply chain and ultimately giving us the ability to truly be compliant. Many of our clients have mentioned that retailers and their customers are not slowing down, and that they're still asking for us as an industry to align with what our KDEs are, what tools are we going to use? Are we going to implement scannable barcodes? Some retailers, as you can see here, have specifically requested GS1 or GTIN compliant KDEs. So we need to make sure that we're optimizing these 30 months by not slowing down, but by properly understanding how we can get it implemented, and start testing and ensuring compliance. That also includes the electronic sortable spreadsheets that are expected in the event of a critical tracking event, or a CTE. Also, many of you may or may not know that FSPCA has officially, as of January, launched the Preventive Controls 2.0. This is not just a nice refresher or a few little amendments. This is a significant shift in how we're handling the hazard analysis of our preventive controls. There are 3 new sections. The contact hours have increased from 20 to 22, and it incorporates FDA's learnings and expectations since the original launch of this in 2016. So we can definitely recognize the importance of getting this retraining against Preventive Controls 2.0, and then that way you can also reassess your own plan when you have the knowledge of the expectations that the FDA has for your programs. One item that I did miss back in January, but it did come out in January and only impacts a few categories, which is low moisture, ready-to-eat foods. FDA launched this guidance document specifically for these categories because what they were finding is an increased risk of Salmonella and Cronobacter in this low moisture ready-to-eat category. It started with the infant formula, as well as some of the other kind of dry nut butter powders and other similar categories. So what is the outcome? I would definitely say that the biggest outcome is to establish a more robust and routine sanitation program with environmental monitoring of both Salmonella and Cronobacter. Many of us probably already test Salmonella in our low moisture environments, but this one adds Cronobacter to the list, which I don't know about you, but many of my programs that I write along the lines of chocolate and snack foods and cereals, we have not added Cronobacter to our routine EMP. So this is something you would definitely want to evaluate and consider, and possibly update your program to ensure that it is aligned with FDA's current thinking on this topic. There are limitations, though, of course, in some of the testing when it comes to products. So that's why they want to shift that focus to the environmental controls. And if we find it in the environment, then we need to make sure that we're doing RCIs, what they indicate in the guidance documents, and appropriate corrective actions. And I know many of you are aware that coconut has been removed from the top allergen list. But what you might not be aware of was in March 26th, the FDA added some additional frequently asked questions. Because essentially what had happened in January was they sent out the guidance document and you had to kind of have that aha moment that coconut wasn't there anymore. And it did leave us all kind of scratching our head like, well, what does this mean? What do we need to do? So thankfully, they did issue this guidance, or the additional FAQs, which clarified that yes, if it's no longer on the major food allergen list, then it cannot be included in the contain statement. Therefore, there does need to be a transitional period of the industry removing it from our labels, as well as they understand the impact due to long shelf life of products that will be sitting on the market. They have not identified a cutoff period. You just have to reasonably develop a plan to appropriately transition to remove coconut in the contain statement. This is not something you can voluntarily do just to cover yourself. It cannot be in there anymore. Also, another one that you might have missed in the January 6th update, but was also further clarified in these FAQs, is that if your product contains eggs from birds other than chicken when used as an ingredient, then it must be declared as its source. So say you're adding chicken egg and duck egg to your formulation, then your contain statement would be contains egg, because that's chicken, so that aligns. You don't have to say chicken egg. And then for anything else, it has to be the source. So duck egg for this example. So definitely encourage you to take a read of that guidance document as well as the FAQs to further align yourself and your team with those changes. The closer to zero, this is still progressing, although as of this top of the year, they have not released any additional updates or changes to what their original proposals have been. So just wanted to let you guys know this is still actively something that you need to make sure that you're following, especially with those lead limits related to products that are targeted towards infant children's category. You can also use these to help extrapolate other raw material controls that you might have in your products that aren't targeted towards those category of consumers. You would want to run appropriate hazard analysis as well. Okay, so what has really changed lately and fast phase out initiative has been around artificial colors. So some updates here. The FDA has started the process to revoke authorization of citrus red number 2 and orange B. And they have noted that this is coming within the next few months. They also are working to eliminate 6 of the remaining synthetic dyes. These are specifically based around those petroleum-based synthetic dyes. And you can see kind of the big list here, which can have an impact to those certain food industries that use these for products coloring. And here they're targeting by the end of the year. We're also, the FDA is requesting voluntary compliance to remove FD&C number 3 sooner than the 2027 to 2028 requirement. So they're kind of pushing us in the right direction to transition to natural alternatives faster than even what they're asking us to do, if possible. So what are they doing proactively? Well, they are looking at and fast tracking more approved natural colors. There's 3 here that hit both the beverage category, juice, breakfast cereal coatings, candies, gums, dairy products. We have these 3 that hopefully will be able to allow the industry to have an alternative and still have that consumer preference of color and appeal for those products as they normally would desire. So what has the industry done? Well, they have definitely spoken out and have started to take some actions. 2 of the top trade associations, specifically the International Association of Color Manufacturers, they, came out strong saying, product formulation is complex and it's a lengthy process. And it's going to take some time to identify sufficient supply. Even with that particular supply, they're even saying there's not even enough abundance of the agricultural reserve to produce some of these more natural color alternatives. So they're kind of taking that, yes, we hear you, but it's going to take time. The National Confectionery Association, they've taken a slightly different stance, which is they're saying or encouraging the FDA to really make sure they're focused on science-based evaluation of food additives, and that'll help eliminate consumer confusion so there's not this like knee-jerk reaction, and to continue that we maintain that trust in the food safety system, but that of course they're going to follow as an industry the regulations as dictated. Now, from a brand standpoint, Kellogg's has announced that they are reformulating their cereals served in schools to not include FD&C colors by 2026-2027 school year. PepsiCo, which, you know, you think about it as Pepsi, but they are also the owners of Lay's and many snack products on the marketplace. And so they are accelerating transition to natural ingredients. And I expect to continue to see these big brands make these bold initiatives and statements to show that they are taking consumer and regulatory guidance and regulations as a priority. FDA still has their nutritional priorities as part of their framework. The FDA has extended, though, recently the comment period proposed for the front of pack nutrition labeling. So earlier this year, we expected this to go at a pretty fast pace, but at somewhere there was a pause to say, actually, we need a little bit more information. So if this is a category of interest, please go to the constituent update areas where you're able to respond. You have until July 15th to provide your guys' feedback on if this is right, wrong, or indifferent, or what it should consider. Currently, you can see what they're hoping it looks like, which would be a focus on those negative nutrients. If that negative nutrient like fat, for example, is 20% or more of the daily value consumed in one serving, then it would get a high value. If it's 6 to 19, a medium. If it's 5% or less, it would get a low. You can see sodium and added sugars. The one thing that they have noted that won't be, or they're not proposing to have in the nutrition front of pack information panel, is calories. They're going to focus on more of those key nutrients that contribute to the leading causes of illness and disease within the US population. So just some industry considerations. What kind of packaging and label inventory do you have? What may this do to your labels? Do you have negative nutrients that might end up in the high or medium? And perhaps look at formulation of new or existing products with nutritional front of pack labeling in mind. They have noted, though, additionally, that they're likely going to give the industry 3 years after the finals rule effective date. So we will have some time, but it's better to get ahead of the curve where possible. So we have one more poll question for today. So let me go ahead and open this one up. All right, here we go. What area of food product development do you find most challenging? Give you guys a few more seconds to get your answer in. A little over half the votes here. All right, looks like we've met critical mass here. So we'll go ahead and end that poll and share our results. Okay, so We can see kind of a mixed list here. This is good for all of us to kind of take a minute to think about, right? We're all aligned with a lot of these similar challenges, ingredient sourcing and supply chain. That's been going on really as a concern since 2020, and still continues today with these changing regulation expectations of us. Regulatory compliance and labeling, this is always should be in the top 3 of our category, right? So I'm not surprised it is the top one in this as well. That effort it takes to stay abreast of the regulations and to ensure our labels and formulation and our processing, hazard analysis, et cetera, is aligned with reducing risk. And then we have that shelf life and food safety assurance. I definitely think this is an area that has peaked, especially with some of these food additive changes, as well as just overall ensuring that we are really understanding the safety of our products. And consumer testing and market fit, absolutely, especially with the color shift. Many of the reasons why some of the industry hasn't shifted to more natural colors, even though it's been heading in that direction for quite some time, has been due to consumer acceptance. And we have this perceived idea of what something is, like a dried mango isn't brown in any way, or dried fruit, and those type of additives or colors to a cereal. So shifting that consumer perception takes time. This even occurred with sodium many years ago when people like Campbell's Soup didn't tell anybody. They just started taking sodium out a little bit at a little bit to adjust the consumer's palate to accommodate for these changes. Okay, excellent. Thank you, guys. Another one I wanted to bring to everyone's attention today is California does seem to like to lead on these regulations that impact not just California. They're written in such a way that any product sold in the state of California or someone from California, like online, could purchase that product, then we need to ensure that we're complying. Prop 65 being one of those that we have had to deal with over the course of decades now. This new one actually has a very quick compliance date as well. It does require food manufacturers to use uniform terminology when labeling products with quality or safety dates, or our expiration dates. We generally already use these, but we're not consistent as an industry. So they're framing this up that quality dates are best if used by. So it starts with that best, invoking it's best at this date for quality, but not for safety purposes, right? Peak freshness. Whereas the safety dates, it's more in your face, use by, don't pass go without using it by that date. Or you could also do the caveat freeze by in order to offset that food having a longer shelf life. They have also banned the use of sell-by dates, except for where regulations already exist, which is in eggs and infant formula. So they will still keep the sell-by dates. Okay. Another element that I wanted to just remind everyone that Global Food Safety Initiative, they have released their benchmarking scheme requirements, and by September 5th of this year, BRCSQF, all the schemes that fall under that must be recognized against the new requirements to remain under that GFSI umbrella. That is part of the process. That's why we sign up to get GFSI audits, because they continue to strengthen and make changes and ensure that the scheme holders are continuing to raise the bar. Some of the key elements that they've changed or have updated is aligning with the new Codex, General Principles of Food Hygiene, or our HACCP program. The most current one came out in 2022. So if you have not downloaded the most current version of the Codex, General Principles of Food Hygiene, aka HACCP, then I definitely would encourage you to do that. They have added the decision tree back in for those of you that maybe had downloaded the prior version in 2020. They've also raised the bar on food safety culture. So if your food safety culture's pretty much been the same plan and the same programs and approach over the past, 2 to 5 years, it's time to brush it off, refresh it, because change will be coming and there will be more emphasis on that holistically. And then, of course, always there's policies and guidelines that change that can initiate overall compliance requirements. The first one out of the gate is SQF. They're launching edition 10. That'll go into effect from an audit standpoint April of next year, although we will be kicking off training as of the end of August when the code will be launched for review and training material will be provided to us by SQF. BRC, they will be having their conference towards the end of this year. So if you are a BRC certified site, I encourage you to go to the conference, check out their website, make sure you're staying abreast on the My Participate, because I do expect them to announce potentially their issue 10 timing. And then FSSC has just gone through their version change, so that one has just already came up. And so they'll have to align and see if there's any other changes they need to make, which I realize the image is not up to date. Sorry about that. Okay, so what's your key takeaways? Well, I would definitely encourage you to read the entirety of the regulatory text, or at least some Cliff Notes version of it, which is the guidance documents and any FAQs. If you're not taking the time to read the relevant guidance documents, you might be missing an element or key takeaway. So I try to do my best to summarize it in this very short webinar, but at least you'll see that there are some of these that would require just a deeper dive. Also, don't forget you can sign up for the regulatory updates. I sign up for the constituent updates, plus I just go to the website at least once a month to make sure I haven't missed anything. If you're on Twitter X, you can sign up for them there as well. So when you're scrolling, you all of a sudden come up against a regulatory update. You're like, oh, I need to dig into that more. Also use this webinar with the information that we presented to you to be compliant for your GFSI requirements. So if you remember, in all of the GFSI requirements, it says you must stay up to date with regulations. You must inform your senior management of changes and put action plans accordingly. So this is a great opportunity to take what we've gathered for you guys and properly communicate that and show that as an action item. Speaking of that, another key next step is to develop an action plan with key stakeholders within your organization to determine what is the impact, what are the timelines? Do we need to start testing new ingredients? Consider it in our new formulation. We need time to conduct market analysis and acceptance and make those tweaks if it's a changing of a food additive or a color additive, or even the impact, as we mentioned, on labeling for the removal of coconut. So it's important that we take a look at that with our key stakeholders and that we're not just trying to do it ourselves. Some of the other obligations, we have to update our procedures. So, the hazard analysis will then change. For example, coconut's no longer that allergen, so that would impact the food safety plan. That low moisture, ready to eat foods, does the hazard analysis identify Cronobacter, or is it only identifying Salmonella? So definitely take a look at your relevant food safety plans, allergen, and your product development procedures as well. Sign up for additional trainings, as I mentioned, and just be proactive versus reactive and get support. where needed. You don't have to try to do it all yourself. Okay, excellent. So we have a lot of questions, so I'm glad we have a little extra time here today. I'll do my best to get through this. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. Gustavo, thank you. Actually, I noticed that maybe I had that wrong, that the compliance date is for the AB 660. Maybe that was just a typo. I 2026. Yes. So we do have a year to get this compliant. I'll just triple check on that for you. And you can just Google it too. So if anybody wants to do that while I'm going through the questions, that was probably just a typo. Okay, and I do see, let's see here, question on, is there specific training required for food defense qualified individual? Now it's a trick question. Yes, there is specific training that has been developed by FSPCA, and as SCS, we are one of the lead training providers and trainers of that particular training, but it is not necessarily required by law to take that to be a food defense qualified individual. The problem though with that statement is where else would you get that training? Perhaps you've had it in your past life. Maybe you've used the Carver and Shock method. Maybe you've signed up for some of the FSPCAs just on demand. But really, when it comes to truly understanding it correctly and understanding how to calculate the 3 elements and how you can use the hybrid method that combines the best of both worlds, the key activity types and 3 elements, to make sure your food defense plan is robust, to understand the impact from a mitigation strategy, I highly encourage you to sign up for that food defense qualified individual course. It's the IAVA rule, and make sure to have the appropriate team members properly trained on your food defense team. The link to sign up for regulatory updates, if you go to the FDA's website and go to food, there will be at the very bottom where you can sign up. And when you sign up, there's a whole list of things you can select. I would encourage you to select only things that are most important. Otherwise, you'll get a lot of email and it'll be overwhelming. I definitely would say the constituent updates where they list the guidance documents, and then maybe the recalls, but that still also is a lot. But take a look at the options there. But it's right there on the FDA website, food, and then at the bottom, there'll be an area for sign up. Yes, we will provide copies of this webinar that you can share to the team. Absolutely. Let's see, this product. Question on the date code law. If the product are sold either frozen or refrigerated, date would start both frozen used by date and refrigerated used by date allowed under the regulations. It's not that it's not allowed, so I can't imagine that that isn't accurate to be able to make that statement. I would just triple check and dig a little bit deeper into that ruling, but it sounds like as long as you have that specific date, you should be good. But making sure though that you're asking yourself, is that product perishable? Is it food safety, or is it for quality? And I would imagine from a frozen and refrigerated standpoint, it would be for food safety. Let's see here. Okay, so we have a question on any feeling for what foreign countries FDA will target to conduct the inspections. Great question. When we look at the inspections that have occurred, you can download on that data dashboard compliance database. We can kind of see where those inspections are occurring. I don't have a feeling or a crystal ball on it, but I definitely would imagine that where there have been issues, if you guys just noticed recently, pistachio cream, even from Italy, there's been issues with stuff coming out of India, that if they're using ELSA, their new AI tool, that you would think that that would probably help guide them where those increased issues that they're seeing might be impacted. But check out the compliance data dashboard. See where they've been this year. You can quickly run the data and maybe it'll give you guys an indication. But I don't have anything specific. All right, let's see, Erica, will the high, medium, and low nutrient label classifications apply to the dietary supplement category? I do not believe so. We can definitely take a look again, but I do believe it's just specifically for the food industry. Again, we can, if you're in that category, just double check the current proposed regulations. I have not looked at the most recent version that's going to be, it's open for comment right now. So definitely check it out and see if it mentions anything about dietary supplement. For some reason, I'm thinking it does not. It applies to food. And then there's other exempt categories, I believe, too. Canada actually, just this year, CFIA launched their own program and they had a bunch of exemptions. And so I do expect to see a similar approach that's not going to be every product. And then there's certain, categories that, don't even have nutrition labeling, like produce. So we wouldn't anticipate any new requirements. These are just based on existing, with an addition of that FOP for packaging. Let's see, hoping, let me have many more minutes. Okay, we got a few more minutes. Hoping you can explain the FDA's message around red dye number 3, emphasizing encouragement and voluntary compliance. It's that wink, wink. Can you guys just, move this along a little faster? Because we're not going to change the regulations, right? They're not going to go back and update the date unless it's an extension, which they're saying actually, please take this seriously. We prefer this to be done sooner than later because we're going to continue to ban more dyes, specifically on the petroleum-based dyes. So it is voluntary compliance. And so, yes, they would expect that you're not launching any new products with red dye number 3. All right, let's see what else. Are there any claims still considered as shellfish allergen list on the FDA? Oh, or clams. Okay, so yeah, still mollusk. So if you go ahead and pull the FDA list, because also tree nuts have changed. It's not just coconut that's dropped. There's like pill nuts and shea nuts and a bunch of others. So there is shellfish is the only thing that is fish and shellfish, in those two categories. But there is this mollusk, right? And we think about mollusk and like clams and we're like, well, why is that not in there? So it very well could be at some point the FDA has been tasked where they can consider if there are other allergens that need to be added. So mollusk is not yet, although it is in other countries. So we can't, again, voluntarily add it in the contain statement unless the FDA recognizes it as a major allergen. And if you don't know what buckets your sub kind of species or product falls into, double check that list to make sure you are compliant. Okay, let's see. Another great question around the traceability in terms of guidance. This, I think, is the reason why Traceability 204 also has been extended for 30 months is because the FDA hasn't really, they have a small entity guidance. So if you just go to their Traceability 204 rule page, there is a small entity, but it's still early stages. There's electronic sortable spreadsheet you can download that they have, but there hasn't been real formal guidance or training on this yet. And so I think also it's not only allowing the industry time to figure this out and to sort out our own supply chains and where we might need to assist with identifying the KDEs, but ultimately the FDA needs more time and preparation and give us more guidance on what they expect and clarity on this case, even a case level barcode. And then, at the retail side, in their warehouses, that's a big challenge because they haven't traditionally went down to that level of what the KDE is expected. So there's technology implications as well. Okay, sorry for jumping around here, but I do have a question here on FDQI versus PCQI, and how are they different? So preventive control qualified individual is someone who is qualified to conduct a hazard analysis associated with the hazards associated with biological, chemical, physical, with that focus on identifying proactively how we can address those. And that's the PCQI training. For FDQI, that is to identify those significant vulnerabilities in our operation that we need to ensure that we have actionable processing steps. And in order to do that, we need to conduct an adequate vulnerability assessment. It's different than our hazard analysis. And that's a specific and unique training to ensure that we can eliminate or reduce the potential for wide-scale public health harm related to a food defense issue, a contaminant being knowingly, willingly introduced into our supply chain. And to throw a third piece on food fraud, that is for economic gain. That's a whole different category and different vulnerability assessment than those other two. So yes, very different. And just because you're PCQI does not mean you're an FDQI. I don't know if FBI, what type of training they've specifically had, except for there is someone heading this up, and the FDA inspectors have received training, just like we would, but additional compliance training. They're out there just building awareness. But if the FDA does come to your site, as we noted, it is open field for them to give you a nonconformance if you don't have a food defense plan, if you don't have monitoring records or corrective actions at the point of your actionable process steps. So all that lingo relates back to ensuring that you understand the rule so you can be compliant. All right, I think we have time for just a few more questions here. Can you provide the link for the OII map? Yes, all the websites should have had the link, but if not, if you just go to the main FDA website and go to the OII page, it is there. Also, if you just go to your recall coordinator, if you put in Google search FDA recall coordinator, it'll come up there, probably easier. So that would be my recommendation there. Okay, so a few other questions that we will try to happily follow up on. If you have any questions, obviously once you've had an opportunity to look deeper into some of these guidance documents, please let us know. And again, our surveys will launch, and you can sign up in advance for the rest of our webinars this year. You can sign up for our training. We also have, of course, our food safety audits and our consulting services. So thank you all. Appreciate your time today and your thoughtful questions. And we will keep learning together how we can maintain compliance with this changing regulatory industry issues. Thank you all. Have a great day.